Welcome to the November meeting of Scottsdale Parent Council. We're going to go ahead and get started. And we'll begin by saying the pledge. The flag is over here on this side of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SPC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Akimel O'odham, and most recently, the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. Okay, today's meeting will start with a question and answer session with Dr. Menzel, like we always do, and we'll hear later from Josh Friedman about school safety, and we'll end our meeting with executive board updates and any announcements from SPC reps. So if you have a question for Dr. Menzel, we actually have cards over here. Nationally, college enrollment is now nearly 2 women for every man. Is there any data in SUSD that suggests we are seeing a similar trend? Do graduation rates vary dramatically by gender? Does college enrollment?
I'll have to do some checking in terms of what our data looks like, but we have a 75% college going rate, so I don't think we have the same disparity as you'll see in the national trends here in Scottsdale. But I will need to do some review of the data, and our graduation rate is, depending on the year, 92 to 94%, so it's solid. Again, I don't think there's a big difference in terms of gender, but we'll have to confirm.
Are teachers allowed to use lunch periods as instruction time or to give tests that are longer than the class period? Do students have protected lunch time in SUSD?
So I would need to know the specific case. So on a regular basis, the answer would be no. Students are supposed to have lunch and it shouldn't be a problem. There could be an opportunity for a student to do makeup work or get tutoring during lunch. Oftentimes teachers will open up their classroom and allow students to have lunch in their classroom and they have informal conversation. So my question would be, is it episodic or is it continuous? And it's probably a building specific issue and one that we could look at that level. But from a general standpoint, kids need to have lunch and that time period should be protected. But if they want additional support or assistance, many teachers make themselves available for that.
What is the status of the district review of student-led clubs, and will any guidance be shared publicly?
So where we are with respect to student-led clubs is the district has created a limited open forum, which means that students can initiate a club of their choice. They need to have a sponsor. There are guidelines related to student clubs. Those are being reviewed. They will be shared publicly. We will be providing updated guidance to club sponsors with respect to expectations. The situation that unfolded at Desert Mountain that I spoke about last night at the governing board meeting is one that gave us an opportunity to step back and say, okay, what worked well, what didn't work well, what can we put in place that helps move us forward? That was preceded by, if you were reading the news, Turning Point Club event that was scheduled at Chaparral High School, except for we don't do events on our school campuses during the day. So if the club has a guest speaker, that's not a problem. If a club is trying to hold an event during a school day that brings in outside non-student, non-parent participants on a campus, that's a problem. So we've been navigating that space and trying to help people understand what happens during a school day on a school campus with student-initiated clubs is for students. If the clubs want to have an event or do something outside of the school day, there's a process for that. If outside organizations want to rent our facilities to hold those kinds of events, they can do those things. And so there is some confusion. The policy that we have in place for club sponsors and how clubs operate indicates that clubs can't have regular outside guests that control the work of the club. These are really student initiated. So no matter what the organization, if there's an outside individual that's trying to guide or direct the work of the club, it's in violation of our expectation. They're welcome to invite guests in. There's a form that gets filled out, that gets processed. So it's managing those expectations and ensuring that it truly is reflective of the commitment that it's a student-initiated, student-supported effort. The sponsors there don't tell the kids what to do. They do provide some parameters and some oversight, but they are not there to say, you can't do this or you can't have those kind of conversations unless it's a violation of our code of conduct, unless it creates something that's disruptive to the learning environment. So there are parameters around that, but they don't direct the work of the club. That's student initiated.
Mesa Public Schools and Peoria have vaping sensors in middle and high school bathrooms. Is SUSD considering anything similar?
We've been piloting a vape detector system, and we also hope to learn from Mesa and Peoria. One of the potential uses of dual settlement money is to be able to install vape detectors. There are some challenges associated with that. If they're hardwired and they're tied to our technology system, that means more ports, and there's a cost that's greater than most would realize. But it's one of those things that we think is important because vaping is a major challenge. It's probably the biggest challenge in our bathrooms outside of vandalism. So 2 V's with respect to the bathrooms that are concerned, vandalism and vaping. And so the sensors actually could help us address that in a very timely way.
Okay, that's all the questions we have. Thank you so much. No one else has any more? If you have a question this meeting, you have to wait until you have a microphone under your mouth because we're actually live streaming this on YouTube. And if you do not have a microphone under your mouth, no one can hear you and we're getting complaints because people do watch.
Hi, with respect to student-led clubs, are those opt-in opportunities for parents where like they're aware of what clubs their students are participating in, or if they're an extracurricular activity that's being held on school campus, but it's student-led, that parents have opt-in options, or no?
So there's no opt-in requirement. Students can choose to affiliate with any club that they want to. We hope that the parents and the students are having conversations about what they do. Some of the clubs meet during lunch. Often at Desert Mountain, for example, there are monthly meetings, but there are also clubs that meet after school, but it's all voluntary. And so it's about having those conversations. There are so many different clubs. Arcadia, I think, now has more than 60. There's a Taylor Swift club. You know, there's not any provision in statute. There's multiple high schools that have Taylor Swift clubs. You know, so and they just emerged. They weren't there 2 years ago. So student interests change. So the clubs kind of come and go based on interest, and we encourage open dialogue between students and their parents on participation in any activity that the student's involved in at the school, but no opt-in requirement.
Are the clubs listed anywhere?
I believe that all 5 high school websites list the clubs on their campuses, yes. I also believe the middle school lists the clubs. The question is, you know, during the course of the year, because a club can surface at any time. So I heard about a new club that someone had proposed at a high school recently. It's not in place yet, but we encourage students, if they have an interest and they have other students who want to participate, they can go through a process to initiate a new club. I don't know that the website is updated as frequently as the clubs might surface or disappear. So you might have a website that lists clubs that no longer have student participants because the ebb and flow is there based on what the interest and passions are.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, our speaker today is Josh Friedman, and he's going to talk about school safety.
You want me to? I got my list of questions or topics here. So my name is Josh Friedman. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for the district. I oversee all 29 campuses in terms of safety and security issues. We, first thing they asked me to talk about was the elementary school security guards. So earlier this year, the board approved 5 positions for elementary school security guards. That would give us 1 in each learning community. And that means that each guard would rotate between 3 schools that currently in each complex do not have guards. We have guards at every high school. We have guards at every middle school. So this would fill the last remaining, or give us an opportunity to fill the last remaining piece that doesn't, which is our elementary schools. We are actively recruiting. We had 4 people that just started the process, and we finished with 1 out of the 4 for various reasons. So we hope to fill these positions quickly. It's been, I don't know, a month or more that it's been open, and we're just having trouble filling the positions. So we are working with the elementary principals to rotate high school guards down on a regular basis. Just they're not there all day. They can't be there all day because we don't even have enough at our high schools, meaning that right now if I have 1 person out sick, I'm taking from another school to fill a spot, or it goes unfilled. So we're doing the best we can. When there are events, we're bringing guards from other schools to fill events. Just to give you an idea, we had, I think it's 3 weeks ago now, Halloween weekend, we had 22 events after hours across the district in one night. And I only have a total of 35 security guards. And when you look at that, and then you have a varsity football game that can require anywhere from our smaller schools get 5 people to our larger schools need anywhere from 12 to 16 guards for a football game. It's very hard to staff all these events. So it's all overtime. It's all optional. I can't force them to work. So we are looking at some other options. We're looking at maybe some potential part-time positions. We're looking at, can we use other people throughout the district. But our elementary schools is a priority for us. We are doing our best. If you know somebody that wants to work, send them my way, especially if they have clean background checks. That would be great. So as far as the elementary schools go, we are working on that. And that also leads me into the SROs. We currently have school resource officers at all of our middle schools and high schools. So they come from 3 different police agencies, because we are in 3 different jurisdictions. So we have Scottsdale, Phoenix, and Paradise Valley. Paradise Valley is a little bit different. We don't have an SRO there. We have what's called a community officer, and they don't do our schools alone. They do all the churches and everything else, because their whole department is maybe 25 people, I think. So it's a little bit different there. We did get approved. Many of you heard about Arizona Department for Education gave those grants in the beginning of the year. We did get approved for 2. That's me, sorry. We did get approved for 2 guards, 2 SROs, 1 for Anasazi and 1 for Yavapai. And both of those elementary schools were approved. They're funded through the state, and then if you're paying attention to anything, there is no police officers to fill those positions. So the Scottsdale Police Department is working with us. They have told us that their hope is to be able to fill those positions next school year on a full-time basis. Police department has also, ADE has just put out something else where they changed kind of the regulations, that if we were awarded the grants like we were at those 2 schools, that we could get, I can't remember what they're calling them. I think they're SSOs or something like that, where they're essentially rotating police officers. It's basically an off-duty officer. As of today, we have not opted into that program yet, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but the main reason is when you put a police officer on an elementary school campus, which is where our 2 spots were awarded, you need the right type of police officer, somebody that doesn't mind dealing with kids, coming up and touching them and asking questions and all kinds of things. And the SSO program does not even allow us to identify where the officer comes from. So it's basically an off-duty program. I was talking with one of the other districts who opted in on it. They had a guard or an officer that came down from St. John's, Arizona, and another one that was from Mayer. And so it's just a random police officer shows up every day to fill the spot. So That has benefits. Yes, it's an armed police officer visual deterrent on the campus, but it doesn't do the other part of the job, which is develop the relationship with the kids, help us to ensure that the kids feel safe on school, because basically all it is an armed guard that walks around. So it's kind of a catch-22. We're reviewing it right now whether we want to opt in or opt out. We actually met with the Scottsdale Police Department, and they have some other ideas to hopefully get us at least Scottsdale police officers that would fill that position, so that hopefully, it gives us an opportunity to work with some different police officers within the jurisdiction to allow us to get familiar with them and maybe entice them to apply as SROs. We're also working with ADE to try and make it where if a police officer retires, currently the law requires them, they have to be gone for a year, they can't come back in the same job. There's all kinds of things. We're working to change that law so that if they retire today as a police officer, they can come back as a specialty SRO and only work in the schools, and they would still be a full regular police officer. But that would allow us to get some of these guys that are retired, that are retiring because they don't want to deal with the, I'll call it the crime of the real world that happens out there, and would rather be at an elementary school where they enjoy being around kids or everything else. So we don't have, like I said, we don't have an answer yet. We are really working on it. We're trying to explore all the options. I hope at the end you'll have my email. Please feel free to send me your thoughts or ideas on any of that. Like I said, to me, I would love to have an armed police officer on every campus, but it's more important to me that we have the right armed police officer on every campus, especially at the elementary level. At the high school level, things are a little bit different. We can throw somebody there, and kids already have most of their opinions formed. But I would love to make sure that when we put a guard at the elementary level, that they're actually doing it and making a positive impact as opposed to just standing there. Let's see. So visitor management, when you guys signed in today, you saw our new visitor management system is here. It's been rolled out slowly to all of our campuses across the district. You'll see the rest of it come in over the course of the next few weeks. This new visitor management system, as with all new technology, is cumbersome in the beginning, but will make life so much easier as we go. Basically, you come in, the first time you come in, you have to swipe your driver's license or any government ID. There's like 19 different IDs. I didn't even know we had that many government IDs, but it will accept 19 different government IDs. You scan it, it runs you through a quick sex offender database to know if you're a sex offender. And then if you choose where you're going, and then you can go on campus. Currently, after you do it the first time with the front desk, with the actual, we call it the toaster, it looks like a toaster, you put your ID in. After you do it through the toaster, the second piece of this that's coming out is the kiosk, which will look like the one that's up in the front there, and if you have questions after, I can show you it. But the kiosk, basically you'll walk in, you scan your driver's license or whatever government ID you have, and then you select where you're going. If you are a visitor, it prints your badge out right away. If it's your first time, it'll say, please go scan it through the toaster first. And then in the future, the next rollout, which will probably be later this year, will be the volunteer program as well. So if you volunteer regularly on a campus, we'll be able to go to the kiosk, you'll put that you're here to volunteer, it'll print you out a badge that says volunteer, and then you can go about your business, it'll let them know. There's a lot of reasons we went to this system. The sex offender notification is a great thing because we want to know who's on our campus. I just want you all to know, just because somebody's a sex offender does not mean that they cannot come on our campuses. We have parents that are sex offenders. We have people that have done stupid things in their early teens and 20s that are registered sex offenders, okay? There are different levels of sex offender. There are different things that they are allowed and not allowed to do based on what the court has said. But if they have a student that goes to our school and they are a registered sex offender, we will now know and be able to make sure that they are, if they're there for a meeting with a teacher, they go from the front office to the meeting with the teacher and back off, and they're not hanging out in the cafeteria or wherever else based upon what their level of offender is and all kinds of things. So it's a knowledge-based thing for us, but I also want you to realize that that doesn't mean that they're not getting on the campus. They're on our campuses today. They've been on our campus. Most of them are harmless in terms of that they have kids that are here. They're there to do a job and or be part of their kids' education, and that's it. So the other thing that this system will allow us to do is it will allow us to be able to people that we've trespassed off of the district for one reason or another will be notified. If there's custody issues, for instance, mom and dad get in an argument in the lobby, which we have all the time because, it's my week, it's your week, it's my day, it's your day. It'll at least give when somebody checks in a heads up to say, hey, we had an issue with these guys over a custody issue before. So basically what this system will do is give us a lot of information to alert the front desk staff, hopefully, to issues that might be there. The best part of this system, which is why one of the main reasons we're doing it, is because when you all go to our campuses and you're doing whatever it is you're doing, volunteering in a classroom or helping with whatever it is, if we go into a lockdown or something happens on campus, currently today we have no way of notifying you differently than if you were sitting at home or sitting at work, and we may need to have you do something because you are on campus. So we are working now to integrate that system with our notification system so that when we put something out to the staff that says, hey, this is what's going on, we need you to lock down, and you're volunteering in a classroom reading to the students, you'd get that same notification that the teacher who's sitting next to you or whatever would get, so you can assist with what's beneficial. The other thing is, if we go into lockdown on a campus and you're just there as a visitor and it's field day and you guys are all out doing whatever and the kids all react and the teachers react to what's going on, we'll now know who's on campus. We'll have your email address. We'll be able to send you email, text, whatever, right that minute at the same time we're sending the staff as to what's going on and what we need you to do. So that's the biggest benefit for something that we hope we never have to have happen, but it will allow us to communicate with you and with the regular staff. So I'm assigned here at the district office. If I go out to a site, I don't necessarily know what's going on because I'm not there to hear the lockdown message or what's going on. But now as a staff member, when I sign in on that campus, I'll be able to get that information as well. I get complaints every year from the substitutes. How do we know what's going on? So this will solve that as well. So there's a lot of positives for this system. Again, if you're all sitting here, I assume that means you're involved in your students' lives, in the campus lives. Please be patient with us. Please help us get the message out to the parents. As with all the systems, they're always cumbersome when you first start them. We have 29 different campuses, which means 29 different principals, which means 60, 70 different staff members that have to all get involved in using this, and not everybody's going to get it. And so please, anything you can do to help us make this painless rollout as possible would be great. Student IDs. Wanted to talk about student IDs. We rolled out a new program this year. The RFID program in the student IDs is working. What I mean by that is any student that gets on a bus, we have been able to determine where they got on the bus and when they got off the bus. We have a neighboring district who lost a special ed student on a bus for 6 hours because he fell asleep in the back seat of the bus. That can't happen to us because we know when the students get on or off the bus. So when a driver's done for the end of the day, he runs a report and it says everybody got off. Now, there have been some challenges. The parent app has stopped working every now and then. There are some IDs that have worked and haven't worked. We figured out that the docs that the company sold us, so the whole tracking system, I'll call it, basically when you get on the bus, your student scans. The only thing it does is put the number that is not your student's ID number, but a number from their badge into another system, and then it transmits it out wirelessly. Well, the dock that does that, they sold us, does not work well in the heat. And, you'd think the company would know. We're doing it in Arizona. We're not the only school district doing it. So they're working on changing those out, so we've had some issues with that. But the interesting thing is that I can go in behind the scenes, and the driver doesn't see what's right or wrong. Like, they don't get their check mark if it's right or their X if it's wrong. But all the data behind the scenes, it says this student number used this, or this student ID badge got on the bus at this point and got off at this point. I still have all that completely, totally, everywhere. So we have had, since school started, probably 100 kids that have missed their stop, forgot to get off, gone to a friend's house mom didn't know about, go to the Boys and Girls Club, all kinds of reasons. And usually it takes us, we've been out searching for kids for hours sometimes who went to a friend's house. Now, I think the longest it's taken us this year is 15 minutes. And that was basically because the kid went to a friend's house and we just had to figure out which friend it was that got off at the stop with them. So the system is working. We had, unfortunately, a crash. Somebody hit one of our buses. There were students on board. No students got hurt, but we're required to provide the police department and DOT a roster of everybody on the bus. Well, in the past, we used to have to print the roster of everybody who's assigned to that stop and then go through and figure out, or who's assigned to that bus and figure out who was on that day and not. Now they literally, in less than 5 minutes, were able to print a roster, email it over, and give it to the police department, which is what this is all about. So God forbid something major ever happens, we can tell exactly who's on the bus without having to figure it out. There has been a bunch of people that have opted out of the RFID program. The good, bad, or indifferent, that has happened. Parents are able to do that. If they do, their child no longer is able to get transportation from the district, period. They can't go on field trips. They can't go on, we won't transport them to or from school. The only time we will transport them is in an event of an emergency and we evacuate a school. We will transport them for that. And it's every parent's prerogative. We're not hiding anything. We're telling you have the opportunity to do that. I'm telling you the reasons why we love this system, why the positive things of it. Everybody has to make a choice for their own child, but what I will say is that the safety aspect of this far outweighs anything else. There is no data, and if you bring an ID, I showed all the parents that came to opt out. I can scan the ID. It gives me a random number that has absolutely no data whatsoever. So people that are worried about what's carried on the RFID, there's no data on there. It's just simply a number. So if people are scanning it or they get the ID or whatever, they get a random number that means nothing. It's not tied to your student except in one computer system that we have. So. Security at sports events. So this year we did something new where middle schoolers were required to have a parent with them at the events. We've been kind of lax on enforcing it just because we're not getting into fights with parents at the gate or with students at the gate because parents have dropped and left. We will get more strict as time goes on. And the reason for that is we have found that most of these students that come to, and I'll use football as the example because that's the season we're in right now, most of the students that come to a football game, especially if they're middle school students, we're the babysitter. Mom and dad drop them off. Kids really don't care about the football game. They're there to hang out with their friends. And then mom and dad go for a date night for 2 hours or whatever, and then they come back and pick them up at the end. Well, the middle school kids, unfortunately, are the ones that we're having most problems with because they just hang out, fight, argue, whatever. They're not there to watch the game. So this year we've been pushing everybody to sit in the stands, watch the football game. If they're not watching the football game, we're basically saying it's time to go home. We're not a babysitting service, and that's for everybody. It doesn't, high school kids as well. If they're not watching the game, they're going home. Don't get me wrong, we allow people to socialize and hang out, but it's these big groups of 20 kids that stand off to the side that you could ask them what teams are playing, and most of them couldn't even tell you which school they're at. So that's the stuff we're trying to curtail. That's why we've done it. High school kids, it's a lot easier just because the principals at the high schools pretty much know them and can look at them and say, you know, I know your name, I know your parents, I've dealt with you before. The middle schoolers haven't been there yet, and a lot of the administrators just don't know them yet. So to have the parent there to be able to call and say, or pull them aside and say, hey, your kid's causing a problem, can you please, you know, deal with them? That's worked out well for those that we've had this year. We did the clear bag policy. I got asked, so currently at the high school level and middle school sports for indoor sports, we have a clear bag policy. It's actually a no bag policy is what we would prefer. No bag, but if you want to bring a bag, make sure it's clear. But the clear bag policy is no different than when you go to ASU or any of these other stadiums. I mean, that's the way the world is going. I've asked why we don't do it for music events and sport and elementary schools, and at this point, honestly, it's more of a staffing issue than anything else. In order to check bags and keep doing everything else, I need 1 or 2 guards. We prefer 2, but at least 1 at every event, and I just don't have the staffing to do that. And to make an administrator sit there and do that, they need to concentrate on everything else. So that's the main reason why we haven't rolled it out further than we have currently. Not to say that we won't. But that's the main reason. And when you look at what we're seeing in terms of the bag policy. I got asked the other day, why did you let some kids in with their backpacks? We're also trying to be reasonable. So I'll use Coronado High School as an example. Coronado High School, a lot of the kids take the bus to go to school, and they want to stay for a Friday night football game. And so a lot of them will be at school, then they'll go over to the Boys and Girls Club for the afternoon, and then come back over to go to the game. We are allowing our students to do that. We check their bag, we tag their bag, and then they're required to wear their student ID if they have a bag in there. So that we know they're our student, that they have been there all day. We have kids that go to tutoring. We have kids that do other sports and then want to go to a football game or a basketball game or volleyball. So we want to allow them to do that. And we don't want to have these random backpacks sitting all over campus because people are trying to hide their bags because they didn't get it. So if they are our student, they go to the school, then they can wear we will check their bag. They will put a tag on it, and then they will be allowed to do it. They have to wear their ID so that we know they're our student. And then we tell them that if your ID comes off, you get one warning. The second time, sorry, you get to go home because coming to the athletics is a privilege, not a right. So we are trying to be flexible with that. We're trying to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to go to the athletics and be part of the sporting community and the school community, but we also need to make sure that they have that we're following the rules and safe and everything else. Let's see. Last thing that's on my list here is the school events after hours. I touched on that briefly. We are seeing, we only fill about 60% of the events that we're requested for security people, and the majority of that is just because I don't have the bodies. I was just talking to one of my guards this morning. She's literally worked the last 21 days straight with 12-hour shifts on the weekends at various events and rentals and everything else. And that means she works all week, she works most nights. It's great for her pocketbook and she's making money, but I have to be concerned about how good is she doing her job if she's been working 21 days straight. So we're looking into things like that, but the bottom line is that we can't be everywhere. I can't force them to work overtime. Those of you that this generation's a little bit different than previous generations. I have guards that just, they don't work overtime. They come, they do their job, they go home. And we're seeing that across the district, teachers and other stuff that's the way it is now. So we're working through it. Hiring bodies is not the answer because as you can see, I still have open, or as I told you earlier, I still have open positions I can't fill. So we're looking at other options and what else we can do and things like that. The other thing I would tell you, since you all are the involved people across the district, the involved parents, we are trying to, for a lot of these rentals, which all the PTO events are technically rental events, we are trying to encourage you all to hire outside security, meaning there's a number of companies, Pride, Pro-M, there's a ton of them that are out there. But then I can bring one of my guards in to be able to supervise them and oversee them, and yet you still have enough security to run your event. And that just allows me to give them a little bit of break, but also to allow you guys to make sure that you have the security that you want at the events, especially at the elementary schools. So we're working through that. We're looking at trying to do that, but the key to that is please make sure you get your information on your events in early. And there's a lot of broken systems in this district. The event system is one of them. We're looking at some new software now to roll out, but it's a cumbersome process for everybody, for you guys, for us, for our facilities people. We know that the system's been around a long time. We're looking at a new one, but the biggest thing I can tell you is get your information in early. The easiest way to ask your security questions is through the email, which is, my email's up there, but there's also susdsecurity@susd.org. That email goes to myself as well as my two other supervisors to be able to answer if I'm out. Not that I've ever taken vacation, but should I want to take a vacation, that'll always get answered. And then everybody should know that we have a 24-hour phone number that rings. It may ring for a while just because it rings through different phone lines to make sure that somebody answers it, and it's 480-484-8484. And that will be answered 24/7. And that is whatever you need security related, or anything else, because we seem to get all kinds of calls. My kid can't register for school. Sorry, that's not something that I need to answer at 10 o'clock at night, but hey, I'll tell you who to call for tomorrow morning. But I do pride myself on trying to be accessible to you all as parents. I'm a parent of kids in the district. I went to school in this district, and I know how frustrating it is when you have a question or concern and you get the runaround. So if you're getting the runaround from anywhere else in the district, please reach out. I will put you in the right direction. I will get an answer for you. We are a service industry. Your kids are the most important thing to you, the same way they are to me. I can't tell you they're 100% safe. I will never tell you that, because if I did, I'd be lying to you. Because you're not safe going to the grocery store. You're not safe going anywhere. But I can tell you we're doing the best we can. And you're good. So we do the best we can. It's not, I have to say the school board has been amazing in terms of giving us the funding that we need to do the security options. I heard you ask the question about the vape detectors. We've been testing one at Coronado. It has been a nightmare and a blessing. And the reason I say that is it goes off all the time, but I can't get a guard there all the time to figure out who it is. So that's one of the challenges. So, we have one right now. Can you imagine if we put them in all the bathrooms at all the schools, which is our goal? I don't have enough people to sit there and manage all of that all the time. So that's just one of the challenges that we have. We are working with that. I have great support from the district. We are working on a lot of our emergency procedures. For those of you that have been in the schools, we used to have those flip charts, like the emergency flip charts that were posted in every classroom. I don't know if you ever read them. I've been in the classrooms forever, and it took forever to go through and even figure out what was there. We've now gone to a single-page poster that you can look at right away and figure it out and do what you got to do. So we're trying to simplify things and get rid of, hey, there's an emergency procedure book that has sat on a shelf for the last 20 years and nobody has even, cracked the cover of it. So we're shortening things. We're making them practical. We're trying to make an opportunity for everybody to be on the same page. And that starts with you guys as the parents. I don't have all the answers. I'm open to suggestions. We have parents that come from all different backgrounds and have different professions and everything else. I'm not afraid to take help. So I can promise you I can't share everything with you. I don't come out and tell you where all the cameras are. I won't tell you what systems we're using. I won't give you all the nuts and bolts. But I'll listen to what you have, and I'll talk to you in generalities and make sure that we're on the same page. And if you have an idea, we'll work on it. And so, what questions?
Thank you for coming today. I had a quick question about timeline. You mentioned the kiosks and that you were rolling those out for the entire district. What's the timeline for that to be in every school? And then also the volunteer process. You said by the end of the year. Is that this calendar year, or is it the school year? What's your timeline?
So I'll do the easy one first. The kiosks, they're starting installation, I believe, this week. The biggest challenge with the kiosks were we had to build mounts for them, so it's getting our carpenters involved. It's getting an outside contractor to run the cabling involved, our IT department and the security department. So that was the challenge with those. We're hoping to have them all installed across the district by the end of Thanksgiving. So that we're going to work over Thanksgiving break to try and get all of that done in the next 2 weeks. I can't promise it, but that's the goal right now. I'm hoping if that doesn't happen, we'll have them before Christmas. Now, what that means is they will be there. I'm not telling all the campuses go and use them. They will slowly, the same way we've done with the toaster and that piece of it, campuses will slowly use them and start to get familiar with it and everything else. And then once I meet with all the front desks and all the people that are doing it and we work out the bugs and we see, I know there's going to be challenges, and we see where they're at, then at some point we're going to say, okay, this is the only system you use. There are other pieces to it, like the volunteer. I can't tell you when the volunteer, because another department's working on it. We're supposed to meet after Thanksgiving to kind of talk about it. I was hoping to have it by the end of the calendar year. I don't know for sure if that we're going to be able to meet that goal for that volunteer piece. But the other piece that we'll be able to roll out is there's a QR code with it. And that's going to come out second semester. And so if your teacher is having a party and all of the parents are coming, they'll be able to send you a QR code, and you can actually register at night. And when you walk in the morning, they can batch print all those badges. So all you got to do is have one of your trusted volunteers like you all come, and you can verify it prints the picture. You say, oh, here's your picture, here's your badge, and just hand them out. So we're hoping to make that quicker. That will definitely come out second semester, and the volunteer piece is just a little bit more technical in terms of legal and backgrounds and chaperones and what that is. So other questions?
Do you have an average cost that the district pays per SRO? I know it's to different districts, and I know it varies, but what's the average per officer cost on an annual basis?
I don't know the answer to that. I can get that and make sure you have it. But I know that we're working currently with all three police agencies to negotiate the rates that we pay. Because we pay, I want to say 70% of their salary or 75% of their salary and benefits. And for those of you that have followed law enforcement or public safety in the last 10 years or more, they had that big shortfall, and so we were paying some of that. So we're trying to negotiate through that right now. Police chiefs have been very open to having those discussions. So, but I can get you the information. I can get it to you to send out, but and let you know what the average price is.
Who pays the other 25%?
The cities pay the other 25%. So we only pay 75%. The cities cover the other cost. Questions?
Thanks so much. We talked a lot about, or you spoke a lot about, physical bodies being the major implementation for school safety, security, police officers. Is there anything else we're doing outside of, again, the kiosk, making sure gates are locked at the school when they're supposed to be locked, that everything, is there anything else that we're doing just to keep the kids safe in campus, ensuring that people aren't getting onto the campus that shouldn't be outside of the front door?
Great question, and I should have covered that, so thank you. So we have a ton of systems. We have over 1,000 closed circuit cameras across the district. We're adding more than 100 cameras every year. That's already budgeted. So that's one thing that we're doing. We're looking at, we've added a number of other safety components in terms of the lobbies were done in the last couple of years where you can't get on campus from the lobbies. We are adding card reader access doors to, not for students, their RFID doesn't work, don't start those rumors. No, it's just for staff, but the nice thing is that when we push the lockdown button to lock down a campus, every door with a card reader locks down automatically. So we've done, I think it's 5 schools so far. We're doing 3 more this year. I think we have 4 planned next year. So in the course of the next 3 years, we should be getting to all the campuses. So what that means is right now, most of the schools have just the front doors, or some of the schools, I should say, have the front doors that are on the lockdown electronic locks. As we add those, we're adding, I think, 50 doors at one of the high schools is one of the projects that's going on right now. So every one of those doors will lock. So what does that mean for you guys is when you're at an event or doing something, don't prop the door open, because in the event of something going wrong, that door won't lock. But if you are doing an event and you need a door unlocked, if you let the office know, we can electronically program that door to stay open for whatever your event is. This year we also rolled out new radios, which allows communication across the entire district. So when we have an incident at one campus, we're not waiting to get on campus to hear all the details or have a principal trying to talk on the radio to her staff on the campus and talk on the phone to us and let us know what's going on and what support they need. We can hear everything live as it's going, which has been a huge saving grace on some of the incidents we've already had this year, where we didn't have enough bodies and we were able to monitor the cameras from here and tell them what they needed to know. So there's a lot of different things we're doing. We are looking at, the question keeps coming up to me, the ballistic film. We do have ballistic film. It's not ballistic, I'm sorry. It's one, I can't remember the ratings, but it's impact resistant or whatever film that we have on almost all of our campuses. It's not on every window. They're in key windows that we've determined that needed when they rebuilt the schools and stuff like that. We are looking at adding more of that. We're continuously adding. This year we added metal detector wands on our high school campuses and some of the middle schools. The students have to, or the administration has to have reasonable suspicion to search. So it's basically, we're using it a lot for vapes. We also had a weapons search earlier this year where we had a reason to search the student instead of like having them dump their pockets and everything else. It's a quick search for it. Unfortunately, the students like to hide vapes in their underwear and bras in places where we're not going to go. So we now have a metal detector wand, and if it goes off, we assume it's the worst and say, okay, you get the worst punishment unless you show us what it is. So we do have a lot of things. Dig It, which is our safety slogan we started last year and we're doing it again this year, stands for doors, which means all the doors should be locked on campus at all times. And we went last year we started the year at around 25% and we finished the year better than 80% in terms of doors being locked. I is for IDs, everybody has to wear an ID. G is for the gates. Gates on campus have to be locked. And then IT is for the IT passwords, and making sure that you don't give your password to somebody else and that you change your password when it's appropriate, because every student has a device and we're seeing a lot of the cyberbullying and people I call it hacking, but it's really just they know each other's passwords because mom doesn't allow me to use Facebook this week or Snapchat or whatever it is, so I give you my phone and my password and you go on my phone and do it. So we see a lot of that. So the Dig It slogan's been working. It's never going to be 100%, but we are way better than we were. When you ask specifically about gates, the security staff at all the campuses as well as the facility staff work hard to go around and make sure that the gates are locked as soon as the doors. The bell rings. We have a very, I'll call it a sophisticated or a multi-tiered system of security on every campus. So there are a lot of things that have to fail for an individual to make it from outside the campus into where the students are learning. Cameras have to fail, the people watching them have to fail, the people doing, the gates have to be left open, the lock has to fail, somebody has to hop a fence. There's a lot of systems to get from point A to point B, and that's the totality. So I got an email this morning from a parent who's like, the fence is only 4 feet tall. And I said, I agree. The fence is 4 feet tall. Anybody can hop it. But if you put a 6-foot fence up there, they're going to hop a 6-foot fence too. So there are a lot of things, and my answer is that we want our kids to have as great a school experience as we did, and we put this whole system in place from start to finish. So the physical security is not any one thing; it's everything put together. And yes, I talk a lot about bodies because that's where my need is greatest now. But we're looking at all kinds of other things to mitigate that and to help with it.
Hi, representing Yavapai. About the kiosk and the toaster, how often will they have to have a rescan of their background check? So originally we'll put it in the toaster and it'll do the background check, right? And then every time we come in, we use the kiosk after that. But how often will we have to re-put it back in the toaster for another background check, just in case somebody does something over the course of a year or something like that that would then flag them? So I'm just wondering how often the background checks are going to be redone.
So every time you scan, whether it's on the kiosk or the toaster, it will rerun you through the database. So every time you come on campus, it will rerun you through. So it has to go through the toaster the first time, and that initiates the whole system and does whatever it does electronically to make it work in the kiosk after the fact.
I appreciate you being here today and sharing all this information. It's very helpful. A couple questions on what you spoke about in regard to her question. On the elementary school campuses specifically, because there isn't security bodies yet there, the radio systems that you have in place, are those held, like, does every elementary school campus have an administrator that has one in hand?
Sorry, gotta use the mic. Yes, we have, every campus has more than one radio. So most of the campuses have between 30 and 40 radios, and it depends on each campus on how the principal or the administrator works with their staff. Some schools have it where every lead teacher for every grade has it. The nurse definitely has it. The principal, the AP definitely have it. The lunchroom has it. A lot of the noon aides have it. The crossing guards. So at the elementary level, we typically have between 30 and 40 radios on each campus. So the nice thing is those radios are an additional. If there's an incident on campus and somebody can't get to the button to hit a lockdown, or somebody can't call, if they put it out over the radio, there are enough radios on campus that 80% of the people will know right away or be able to get the message to everybody else right away. So it's a benefit. It's also a detriment when somebody's saying, hey, the toilet's overflowing, and it interrupts everybody across the district or across the campus. So did you have another question?
I did, and with respect to the lockdown of all the doors on the elementary school campuses, do they currently all have, because I know you mentioned like over the next course of several years, you're looking to get more schools to get that unified, but take one elementary school, for example, does every door currently, or at least 80% of the doors, have the ability to have a lockdown and automatic lock from someone?
So yes and no. Every door has the ability to lock. Every door on campus has the ability to lock, has to be able to lock without having a special mechanism like, you may need a key, but most of them have been changed on the interior of the door to have a thumb latch so you can lock it from the inside without needing a key. But to that answer, no, not all the elementary schools have the electronic locks. Any of the ones that were recently rebuilt, Kiva comes to mind. Kiva has all the electronic door locks. I can't remember. Cherokee does. It depends on the doors. So I can tell you we're looking to do 50 doors at one of the high schools right now. It's about $200,000. So that's one of the challenges. I can only do so many schools a year because I only have so much money. We are very fortunate that all of the front doors at all of the schools have it. So the initial, most people will come in, if the gates are locked on the outside, the entry point is the front doors, and those doors all have it at every school to be able to be locked down right away. And then even if somebody comes in the lobby, because people come in and they start asking questions, if they get in that front lobby, we can trap them in that front lobby because all of the doors there are all electronic. So it's a quick button push. It doesn't have to be the lockdown button that makes the announcement go and everything else. So we've had it where a parent has become irate, and we're calling the police, and the parent's pulling on the door and trying to get in or yelling and screaming, and the front desk person can literally push a button that discreetly locks all the doors so they can't get in or out, and then we just wait for the police. And so it's essentially putting them in a fishbowl but not allowing them to get out onto campus or anywhere else. So yes and no. Yes, we can lock down any school today. Yes, some are easier than others if they've been rebuilt, but that's our goal, is to continue to do that.
My question was about cameras. I know that we have them throughout the entire district, and I guess my question is, who on each campus is keeping an eye on those, and is someone at the district level keeping an eye on at least the exterior campuses? Like, are they being monitored at all, or are they only being really used retroactively when you have to see what happened?
So a little bit of both. On the campuses, it depends on the campus again, but principals and APs always have access. A lot of the campuses, like the nurse will have access, or the other front desk person that need it, especially for the front of the school. The exterior campuses, like the front desk, usually has access to the front cameras. And then, so they monitor them, and when I say all the time, that's not happening. But they monitor them as often as they can. We do have them here. We have an office in the security office where I have cameras running all day, every day, and we watch them. There's 3 of us in there, and when that's, somebody's always in there watching the cameras. Are we going to catch something? Probably not. And I'll be 100% honest with you, because I'm watching over 1,000 cameras. So we're in the process of looking at some new software, the new AI software. Gilbert just spent over $1 million on new software that literally watches the cameras for them. It's great. I don't know if it's the best use of our money proactively. You know, would you rather have cameras that are monitored by AI, or would you rather have $1 million worth of electronic door access and electronic, and ballistic film and stuff like that? So that's just some of the stuff we're weighing. Is there another solution? Is there other things that we can do? So we're looking at that. We do have anytime kids are not the brightest, so they usually telegraph when they're doing something stupid or hear something or whatever. So if we know, and I know I'm not talking about the active shooter, but most of the stuff that we have, we haven't had an active shooter. Do we prepare for it? Absolutely. But is that what we prepare for every day? I could tell you we're going to have 20 fights on campuses today. To me, I could tell you that we're going to have kids vape. My biggest fear is not the active shooter, because if that happens, that's the police department to deal with. My biggest fear is these kids that vape, and we get one bad vape that's laced with fentanyl that the kids all share, and I end up with 20 kids that have now done fentanyl-laced vape, and I got to deal with the what comes of that. So the kids are truly telegraphing a lot of this stuff, and so the administration, the security guards on the campus, that's some of the benefit of having the security on the campus. They get to know the kids, and the kids start to tell them things, and they hear things. Social media is great. We have software that looks at all the stuff that comes out on social media. So when we know stuff is coming, that's what we stop all kinds of things just by using the cameras and preparing ourselves and doing that. But we don't watch them all the time. We are looking at software to do that, though. Yes, security guards on all the campuses have access to all the cameras. So even if they're not at the elementary school, like the leads at the high school can see all of the schools that they have within their complex. I'll just repeat it. So she asked if the guards can see if all the security guards can see the cameras, and the answer to that is yes, they can see them. In that complex, we don't give them all of them. And then she asked if they can see them on their phone, and the answer to that is no. Currently, we can see, I think we're testing, we just got new cameras. We're testing 5 cameras to be able to see them on your mobile device. And the challenge we have right now is they're too small, so you can't pick out what you need to pick out. You may see a fight start, but you're not going to see who did it or anything else. So it's a little more challenging, but we are looking at that. And like I said, we have 5 we're testing right now.
And so one other general question, what are the biggest security challenges you're seeing at the elementary level, middle school level, and high school level?
That's a tough question. Can I just say parents? No, I'm just kidding. So I think at the elementary level, it is more of just the not being embedded enough in the campuses, because I don't have security guards there. A lot of things get through, so we're a lot of reactive at the elementary schools. The middle school, without a doubt, is vaping. Vaping and stupidity, and what I mean by that is, I'll push you now, and then you turn around and push me later, and then my parents hear that you pushed me, so my parents want to sue you and want charges pressed, but then if you're pressing charges against me, I'm pressing charges against you, and so I call that stupidity, because we are all in school, and stuff happens, but parents these days they're protecting their kids with the legal system, so, we just pressed charges against 9 7th graders the other day for literally pushing each other in the lunchroom. It's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt, and one kid fell and bruised his knee, and mom saw it, and so I get it, but they're still kids, and the kids were back friends playing on the playground, and the parents are still yelling at us in the office. But I think at the middle school level, we see a lot of that. We see a lot of the vaping, unfortunately, at the middle school level, and then at the high school. It's tough. I mean, we're see a little bit of everything in the high schools. I think the biggest challenge for me at the high school right now is just getting the students to buy into security in general. And what I mean by that is Uber Eats comes to the door, they prop the door. They wearing an ID in high school, you'd think you ask them to wear frilly pink clothes all day long. They don't want to wear an ID. It doesn't match their outfit. And I have 2 high schoolers, and My daughter says it every day. Doesn't match what I'm wearing. So I think that's my biggest challenge at the high school, is that the kids are the challenge in terms of getting the buy-in from them to even just close a door, to understand why we're doing it. I think as they get older, and I met with the student advisory board, and this is one of their things, is safety and security. And I think the biggest challenge is as they get older and they start to understand it and they ask the good questions, I think that they start to get the message down. But I'm hoping that we can start sooner than these juniors and seniors and get them as freshmen. That's one of the reasons why we did IDs all the way to elementary school. Forget all the good reasons behind it, is if you can teach somebody in kindergarten and first grade to start wearing an ID and not care about it, it's kind of like a seatbelt in a car. You know, I used to work for the fire department, and I told the parent, you know, tighten that seatbelt all the way down in the car seat. Why? Because they can't yell at you now. They cry and then they forget about it. But then when they get older, they're used to it and they don't, you know, complain about it. So it's the same thing. If they wear an ID when they're in elementary school, by the time they get to high school, maybe it won't be as big a fight as what we're dealing with. So I would say those are the top three that I grade-wise.
Couple questions. So first, elementary schools, because they don't have people on campus, are we prioritizing some of the other technologies there? Yeah, I'll ask both. And then the other question is, do the PTAs have a wish list of, like you said, all these things are expensive, but I'm sure PTA would fund that stuff. Do they have a wish list per campus of technologies?
So both those questions kind of run into one, and we are prioritizing everything. We try and roll a lot of the stuff out to the elementary schools first, and then move them up because of that. The biggest challenge is, yes, PTOs, they're great. They call them what you want, APTs, PTOs. All the parent groups, boosters in the high schools are great, and they all have wish lists. The challenge I have with that is I have some schools that have their PTO budget is what another school may spend on a, you know, one part of a single event. So what I have said and what I will continue to say is, if you're a PTO and you can fund, let's say you want to put 20 cameras on your campus, and I tell you this is what it's going to cost, and you come back to me and say, yes, I can 100% do it. My answer to you is going to be, that's great. Help me find a plan for a PTO that doesn't have that ability. I don't need you to fund it. I need you to work with me to find so that the visitor management system is a great example. Copper Ridge up north has had a similar visitor management system for 2 years. Okay, their PTO bought it, funded it, paid for it, everything else. We were going to take it out completely because I can't give one school something because the family, the PTO, whatever, has the ability to pay for it when another school can't. My job, your job is to advocate for your kids and your campus. My job is to advocate for everybody. So I need to hear something from you guys to say, hey, we want to put ballistic film on all of our windows, and we will do these type of fundraisers to assist those schools that can't afford it. I need to hear a plan from you guys to help me do this across the district, because it's not fair, and it shouldn't be economic status driven. It shouldn't be anything. Everybody's kids are worth the same. So that's been my challenge, and one of the things I proposed, and I don't know if it's gaining traction at all or anything, was all of your PTOs should create a district-wide fund for security. And let's just say that you give 10% of whatever your annual budget is. If down south that's $300 because that's all they give $30 because they only raise $300 in a whole school year, they're given the same percentage as a school that's up north. And then that money can be used so when one of the north schools come to me, and I know I'm geographically, but you all know what I'm talking about. One of the north schools comes to me and says, hey, we're going to put 20 cameras in and here's the money for it. I can say, okay, we'll use the money out of this fund to put the same 20 cameras at some of these other schools that can't do it. And so we do have district minimum standards. We make sure that every school across the district gets it, like the doors. It's going to take us 3 to 4 years to get all the schools with all the doors. We will get there. But if you guys have needs and wants, 100%, PTOs come to me all the time, and I say, you know what, I 100% agree with what you want to do. Find me a way to do it at all the schools. Or help me with that, I should say.
But of course, isn't the inherent flaw in that approach that if there isn't a way to find the funding to do it for all the schools, then none of the schools will have that?
So to add on to that, she said that some schools already have some of the stuff so I agree, and that's why we work in our budget year process for capital improvements, which is what 90% of this is a 5-year process. So the door locks is a great thing. Any school that was rebuilt has massive amounts of door locks, and when they were rebuilt, they were given more cameras than the schools that don't, or than the schools that weren't rebuilt. So now I prioritize those schools that weren't in my 5-year capital plan to match them. So I'm not asking the PTOs to fund security enhancements for the district. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm asking. We will get to it. I need your ideas. I take all the ideas and we fit them into the capital plan to make it. But what I get frustrated with is when a PTO literally will come to me, and I had one do this last month, and handed me a check for X amount of dollars and said, here, we want this many cameras on our campus. That's great. You know what? But that check doesn't help anybody else. And every school is going to get cameras. I'm not going to put 50 cameras on one school and 20 on another. I'll give you some of your cameras because you can fund it through the PTO, but I'm not going to give you 50 and have a school that has 20. I will work to get everybody to a minimum standard to give them the enhancement, but I'm not going to give you everything you want because that's just not fair.
And this is a comment for everybody in the room, as well as Josh. But I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but many of the PTOs have a line item in their budget specifically dedicated to safety and security. We might have it, hidden with respect to events so that we can pay overtime security guards to attend events. But I do think it would be very beneficial for every PTO to have some sort of a line item with respect to safety and security, even if it's a small percentage of the budget. And maybe that goes towards a universal, improvements to support schools that can't do it also, or it's to future improvements that everybody can benefit from. So, or personally for the school, but I just think it's something to consider.
I just think it's really tough sell to the parents that give to the PTOs since they expect their contributions to all go into their school. And so I know that that's what we were often up against when we wanted to give funds to other organizations or schools even. That was always the pushback and feedback we got.
I agree. I was a parent as well. I make X amount of dollars. I want my kids to have the best education and the best safety, and I want it to go to my kids. And that's your job as a parent. But I have to flip that around and say, I agree 100%, but we have to make it equitable for everybody. Now, what does that mean? That means, and Lana and I have become friends this year because Lana has a whole bunch of great ideas, and she's been working with me since last year. They had an idea to create basically a SRO police substation office in their school. The PTO wanted to fund it. We don't have it at all of our campuses. When they built the 2 schools in Paradise Valley, Paradise Valley PD put one in and funded it, but we don't have them in all of our schools. The high schools have an office because they have an SRO there. The middle schools have an office, they have an SRO there. We are planning now for all of the elementary schools to get it because our hope is that all the elementary schools will have it, but they wanted to do it now. So their PTO funded it, met with all of us, and we're working through all the logistics and making that happen. So I want to be clear. If you bring an idea to me that is just unique to your campus or something that you want to try, we'll vet it out. We'll say, hey, we'll try it. But what I don't want to see is that I'll use ballistic film on your school wants ballistic film on every window there. I'm not going to do that. What I would say is, we'll pick the ones that are ideal for your campus, and maybe you'll give us, one window at every other school. I understand that as good as you guys do. I'm a parent in the district. I understand we all want to advocate for our kids, and we want our kids to be safe, but your kid's going to go to that school for so many years, and then they're going to move to the middle school. And wouldn't it be great if you got to the middle school and that already had some of the improvements that you wanted at the elementary school, because we as a district have brought it across to everybody. So I'm not saying that I want you to share your money. I'm saying that I want you to be open to, hey, my kid's going to this school for 3 years, 4 years, or 6 years, whatever it is at the different levels. how do we make it better for everybody, but also how do we make it equitable for everybody? And I don't need you to fund it. I need you to give me ideas on how to, hey, let's do a fundraiser for this, or we did this great fundraiser. A lot of your schools auction off parking spots, right? Those are ours. Those are the district's parking spots. You don't own them. We own them. We allow you to say, hey, you're going to make however much money, 40 grand to one PTO told me off a parking spot. Okay? However much money, that's mine. When I say mine, the district, that's ours. That's our parking spot. I had a parent that I parked in the parking spot. We were dealing with an incident on the campus, and she parked behind me, and she wasn't going to move her car. I'm in a district vehicle. Okay, says security on it. She wasn't moving. That's my parking spot. And she was complaining she was going to call and have my car towed. Well, I'll tell you who won that argument later. But what I can tell you is it's something that's as easy as that, as saying, hey, of that parking spot, we're going to give everybody a parking spot, and a percentage of that, because we can do that north, south, and everywhere, that one parking spot will be raffled off, and whatever is made on that parking spot goes into a fund. It's not something, the problem when I was a parent was, you know, we work hard at our fundraisers, whether it's an event, whether it's a bingo night, whether it's whatever it is, you work hard to do that. So you want the money to stay within your district, not within your school, not just because it's your kids, but because you worked hard for it. So the question is, how do we come up with something, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's an event, whatever it is, that doesn't cause a whole lot of work for the PTOs that are raising the money, but also gives us a way to make everybody a little bit more equitable, so that when we have an issue, it's not just the North schools that are getting it. And when you bring me this great idea, I can say, hey, look, I have this money here, we can start it. The visitor management thing is a great thing. And we piloted it, we used what Copper Ridge did and brought it to the board and said, look, this works. And then they approved it. So now we have funding to do it across the district. So that's the stuff we need, is a way to get some of this stuff started, the ideas that you guys have. What else?
Thank you so much. One question I have is the 4 spots we have available for SROs. Have you guys looked at an outside company? My son goes to private school, special ed private school, and they went to like antebellum protection. And it's all Scottsdale retired police officers and military, and that's how they found their SRO. So I'm just curious if you've branched out.
We have looked at that. The district does not currently look or want to have outside security company. And the reason for that is you never know what you're getting. I know antebellum security very well. And I know what they're paying for antebellum security as well. So I guess what I would say is, yes, we've explored all kinds of ideas. Going back to the original proposal, if we wanted to put just an armed person on every campus, there are a million different options. My bigger challenge is I want the right armed person. And when you get just a security guard that's standing out there with a gun on his hip, that doesn't want to talk to the kids, that doesn't want to talk to the parents, even some of the SROs we have, I sit on the board when they select new SROs because I want to make sure that they fit well with our school and our kids and what we're trying to do. This is about building a relationship. If we wanted armed guards on every campus, yes, we could just hire somebody outside. And at today, standing here today, that's not something that we've chosen to do. I'm not saying it won't happen in the future. We are continually having discussions with the way the police officer or police departments don't have staffing. That may be where we end up. But as of today, we're still working on trying to get Scottsdale, Phoenix, Paradise Valley, SROs to be a part of not just the campus, but a part of the culture of the campus.
We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Any others?
Hi there. Thank you so much. This is really, really helpful. I have a child at elementary school in the north part of the county, so I think it's really interesting, all the stuff you're bringing up about equitability, and that's really great to keep in mind, too, with our PTO. I guess I'm wondering, I know you have a shortage of bodies right now for security, and obviously we don't expect teachers or staff to be, trained in the same way or anything like that. But I'm just curious if the district does any type of training I know you guys do drills and such for, practice lockdowns, things like that, but is there anything at like the district-wide level where you guys offer training or require any kind of security training for just, the everyday staff that works in the district? I'm thinking like, a lot of companies even do that, just what to do in an emergency situation, and it doesn't matter where you work, right? Or you don't have to have a security background to offer those things. So
Yes, we do. Every staff member at the beginning of the year is required to go through an online training, and then so that's even that has to be done, and that goes through all the basics. What to do in a lockdown, what to do in a shelter in place, what to do in evacuation, how to react if they get a random phone call, gates, all the stuff is done there. And then on the site, they're required to do at least one, most of them do 2 in-person training with all staff. And that's in addition to all the other drills and everything else that happen. They're required to do 1 evacuation drill every year. They're required to do 3 lockdown drills and at least 1 shelter-in-place drill. So, and after each one of those drills, and not so much the evacuation drills, and we call them evacuation drills. They're the old fire drills that we used to do, but they're evacuation drills now. They're required to, excuse me, do an after-action report, talk about what went right, what went wrong, and what changes need to be made on the campus. And one of my staff, even if they're not assigned there, tries to attend every one of those drills to be the outside evaluator to talk about what went wrong. And we've made a lot of changes, and one of the biggest changes is the ability for staff and the substitutes to be notified during a drill. So, yeah. They do get training on a regular basis, and they have to do it every year. I don't care if you've been here 1 year or 20 plus years, everybody has to do it.
Thank you for being here. We at Sequoia absolutely adore you, so thank you. My question, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Veronica and I have a very close relationship. I talk to her about it all the time. What are your thoughts on having I know a lot of PTOs have a dad's club. And a lot of our noon aides, not that it would be a paid thing, it would be strictly volunteer based. A lot of our noon aides are our moms from the school. What are your thoughts on having dads kind of rotate through as a volunteer position, kind of roaming campus as just like another set of eyes?
I hesitate because we have this at a couple of our campuses, and I am for it as long as there are very strict guidelines. We have one of our campuses that had it, and dads literally got into arguments because they were, quote unquote, the police, and they start arguing with the other parent, and your kid didn't walk in the crosswalk, or you cut across here, and then there starts to be an argument, and then the police get called, and then, so a little bit of power goes to some people's head a long distance. So I think they're great if they're eyes and ears. I think they're great if they are given specific guidelines and what they can and can't do. The more people that are watching, the better. But there needs to be specific guidelines. They need to work with the administration on the campus. They need to work with my staff. We need to be able to ensure that at the end of it, it's a positive experience, because there's the one school I was talking about ended up being this huge rift because both families were in the PTO, and so then the PTO starts arguing amongst themselves, and is the club good or bad or whatever. So that's my only concern with it, and we've had it happen here. So I would just say that, yes, I support that idea. The concept of it is good. It's the implementation that is a challenge. And I think, getting the right people there, we can always work through it. And I'm always willing to give it a try. Like I said, as long as everybody's willing to come to the table with, and we come to similar expectations, I think we end up where we need to be.
Thank you so much. That was really informative and amazing. Okay, we have a few executive board updates before we end. The first one is SPC this month is encouraging everyone in the district to thank people from your school, people from district level. We just heard Josh talk. That was amazing. He also said he basically doesn't take vacation, right? We have a lot of really dedicated people in this district that do a lot of good, and we're encouraging people to kind of take a minute. We're encouraging all parents to take a minute, think about that, and then send some thank you notes or however you feel like thanking people. The website is hard to link like an actual like URL because it's like page and then a number for most things. But so we've given instructions for how to find email contact information at various levels. So like your child's school, you go to the main SUSD website, click on our district, our schools, you can find a whole directory for your child's school. For high, for up at the district level, same thing, SUSD website, our district leadership, or you can also click on leadership team underneath. You'll find cabinet level, executive directors, all kinds of people who work really hard every day to make sure that our kids are having an amazing experience in schools. And then last but not least, we have instructions for how to find contact information for the governing board. They each have individual emails, and then there's an email address that goes to all of them. They work really hard, it's a lot of time, and it's all volunteer. So you should see this hopefully in some of your PTO newsletters because we've asked PTOs to put it out. We'll have it on social media, and we'll be promoting this for the rest of this month. Okay, budget update. Just the only change from the last time you've seen this is our email subscription monthly recurring expense came out again. Our next meeting will be here December 20th. It's an evening meeting at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be a little different. The topic is sister schools. About the first 30 minutes or so, we're going to have a celebration, probably with something to eat and drink, but not that kind of drink, just anyway. Yeah. And then we'll hear about sister schools. So Margaret Cerner will be our main speaker, but we'll also have some other people talk about this. So you've heard about this a few other times at the general meetings this year, but the district and then SPC is helping kind of have a second grand opening of the sister school program. So we're pairing schools together and encouraging them to work together and collaborate, and then we'll kind of see what comes of it. And spoiler alert, it'll be amazing. We do have the list. We've sent it out. I can share it through the whole SPC email address. It's gone out to, I think, PTOs. Okay. So the link might have not worked when we sent to SPC reps. We will share it again. Yes, we have the list, and we'll publicize it. Okay, so tomorrow night here in this room at 6:30 p.m., we have our second PTO roundtable. We're going to have 3 stations. One is bylaws, one is facilities with Dennis Rohr. Third is parent engagement. Yeah, and parent engagement. The first one we had was amazing, so highly recommend. Anyone who's involved in the parent organizations at your campus is welcome to attend. Okay, any SPC announcements from any reps?
Sister schools specific. Sequoia helped Yavapai with a teacher breakfast 2 weeks ago, and it was really nice. It was really fun. We toured. The PTO president and we toured the Yavapai campus and got to meet some of the teachers, and it was really rewarding.
That's awesome. Anyone else? We might ask you to elaborate on that in the December meeting too. Okay, thank you so much. As always, if you have any questions, your one-stop shop is the email address there. And we'll see you next month. Actually, we'll see you tomorrow night at the PTO roundtable, and then next month.